morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Steps to Soul podcast. Today, we're covering a different little topic maybe you haven't thought about before, disaster-proofing your business, what to have in place before the worst happens. Unfortunately, when everybody gets into business, they know one day you have to get out. You dream that you're going to get a nice big check, it's going to walk in the door the day you want to retire, and you can just exit, right, Chris? However, life throws curveballs at us, as we all know. If you've been around as long as we have, you're going to get a couple you don't expect and make life a little more difficult. You know, whether it's from death or disability to partner disputes, economic shocks, COVID pandemics, things happen and it can affect your business value, when to get out, how to get out, and all that. And if you don't have a plan for when the time to exit and how to prepare for those sudden unnecessary changes, it may make your business in some cases even unsellable or at the very least severely damaged and unable to sell at that time. So don't leave your loved ones, your partners, your employees in that position. Today, we're going to cover a lot of things, how to avoid that, what to do, what to think about. So get ready. It's going to be a fun one, Chris. And then also one side note for you buyers out there, you may think, oh, this only affects the seller. It doesn't. This affects you too. Because you're trying to buy a company and these policies and procedures aren't in place or you're going to take over, you're going to want to implement these procedures too. Because that's going to protect your massive investment, especially if you're taking on a lot of debt to buy a business. Am I wrong, Chris? I mean, we don't want bad things to happen, but life throws us curveballs.
Yeah, these crises that you're talking about, they never send us a nice friendly calendar invite, do they? We never.
No, they do not book your calendar schedule.
No, they don't fit in our Outlook calendar. So, I know most owners believe they'll have time to prepare for when a crisis comes, and I've seen time and time again where that's not the case. So, yeah, happy to dive into this subject today, and hopefully we can help a lot of people kind of prevent those, at least prepare, right? That's what today's about.
That's exactly right. I would ask you the question if you're out there listening, what would happen to your business if you didn't show up tomorrow? I think that's so important for people to put in their mindset of what's going on in their life. 60% of small businesses have no succession or even contingency plan. If you were to die or, something were to happen important where you carry the license for the company, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. And we're going to talk about some anecdotal stories today that cover that. I'm going to share some personal real life experiences on my end that I've maybe hinted at before, but I've got a lot of great insight from my personal journey this year going through that. So this topic kind of hits a little close to home. But the biggest thing is, documentation in place, strategy, planning. It's not always a lot of work. And I want to warn y'all, just a few small things can make a huge difference. But let's start with often, the top scenarios to plan for. And I'm going to start with the most obvious one, owner death or incapacity. I went through that this year with my dad. You need to have a documented succession plan in place. You need to have key members of your team assembled who know the business or have familiarity with, whether it's an attorney. Hopefully, whoever's the number 2, number 3, number 4 person knows the CPA by first name basis, has their phone number, has been helping a little bit with the books. Maybe not doing everything, right, Chris, but has a familiarity of what comes in, what comes out. The biggest thing I stress to my dad is knowing the accounts, knowing where all the money went, where it's going. And I'm going to start with this topic, having signature authority. Let's start there because we'll talk about documentation in a minute. Signature authority is so important. Often we see business owners say, well, I write the checks, right, Chris? How often do we see that? Probably 85% of the time.
Yeah, they like that control, don't they?
They do. But what happens if you get incapacitated in the hospital for 6 months? Who's going to write the checks to pay the bills? Who's going to be able to get the working capital figured out? Who can even take out a loan to buy time, right? When my father passed away this year in January, luckily maybe a year before, I got signed on to every single account as a backup. And I could write checks for our guys if they made a sale. That was no problem. But I was signature on every account, even corporations, the one that owned the building, the company, or other corporations, just as a fallback if something were to happen unexpectedly. And my dad was gone in 24 hours, basically, incapacitated. And thank God I had the ability to write checks because we would have been in no man's land. I stress at the people, even if you're not 100% sure on somebody, you need to start thinking about who could be the backup. Even if it's the wife. Maybe you don't trust in your employees, and that's okay. But there's a family member that can step in and help. Have succession documentation in place, Chris. Have you come across any businesses that even have that lately?
No, I really haven't. A lot of owners are in their 50s or 60s, and they don't even have those things in place. I'm dealing with a plumbing company right now. He was smart enough. He's got a lot of things lined up, and he's mid 70s, so he's had time to think about it. But I don't think a lot of owners in their 50s and early 60s, they kind of think they're living on borrowed time, aren't they? Because something's going to happen,
And
whether
they're still
whether it's a
young men.
small.
Let's be honest.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we don't want the worst to happen. That's not what we're talking about here. But even if, like you said, you go to the hospital, even if it's just for 2 weeks, what happens if nobody's there to authorize payroll? What if payroll
Mm-hmm.
stalls? What if vendor relationships got to be kind of maintained throughout that process? And now they don't have that communication because it's all relying on the owner, relying on you. So, yeah, all this stuff, start making those decisions now and putting these plans in place. Documented succession plan, or just standard operating procedures of what happens when you're not in the business. Those are
You're absolutely
vital.
right.
Those are
You're
absolutely
right.
vital.
And especially in the modern age of, you know, fraud and, identity theft specifically, banks are more so scared not to do anything without double verifying and having these documents in place. I can tell you from example, you mentioned documentation. We had a document signed and notarized by an attorney that if my father were to pass away or become incapacitated, I immediately assumed the role of president to do whatever needed to be done. And thank God we had that. It gave me peace of mind and my father peace of mind in our family. Because I mean, I couldn't imagine if I was working for someone for 20 years and then all of a sudden he's gone and no one can pay me my payroll. No one can get me paid. No, like, what would my guys do? They would leave. You can't tell employees just wait around and hope to get paid for a month later, right, Chris? Like that doesn't work. And talk about economic times when it's harder for a lot of people. That's a deal, bro. If you've got good skilled laborers or good skilled employees, they're gonna start looking elsewhere. They may love you, but you got to get paid.
Yeah, and we're talking at high level things, but let's get into the weeds here. What
Mm-hmm.
you really want in place is who's going to take over daily
That's right.
operations if you're not able to. Who has
Mm-hmm.
signing authority?
Mm-hmm.
How they're going to communicate with the staff, with clients, vendors I talked about earlier. You need to think of it as you're installing an automatic pilot system for your business. That's the
That's
best
right.
way to think about it.
That's
Hey,
well said.
the pilot just he can't man the plane anymore. Flip that thing on and make sure it keeps flying. Maybe it's not ready
Mm-hmm.
to land, but we don't want it to crash and burn, right? That's what we're talking about.
No, you're exactly right. You don't want to be the plane that just keeps flying, but no one eventually can take back over or can't fix the problem. This isn't a band-aid. Let's make this clear. It sounds like a band-aid, but it's not. It's a continuation of the life of the company. Doesn't mean that band-aid, the wound won't heal and you can take the band-aid off. But if the band-aid does come off and it doesn't heal, that person needs to have the capacity to make that role continue. And that's often hard to think about because we don't want to think about the negative, right? I never thought that day would come. My dad was in excellent shape at 81 years old. Got sick, boom, done. I mean, my life got turned upside down on January 7th. Like I went from going on the 31st, he was sick. On the 1st, he was incapacitated. I went from being in the middle of tax season, mind you. The year just ended, the fiscal year. I'm dealing with taxes. Luckily, I know the accountant. Luckily, I help out a lot. But we deal with a lot of companies. We had a plumbing company here locally where the husband died, had the license. There was nothing in place. The business went into a state, but they called us and it was hard to listen and get things going because nobody had documentation, didn't know where the money was going. It was a mess. So, not to be too morbid, but it can happen. Be prepared. If you don't have someone in mind, if you have a trusted attorney, even have somebody that can immediately assume that role to buy time to figure out what to do. I would stress that heavily. So, besides death or incapacitation, the most morbid thing, let's talk about an often unsung issue that people don't ever think is going to happen. Key partner, or let's say in this case, a shareholder conflict. A lot of times people get into business with their best friend. My friend's never going to betray me, right, Chris? We're never going to have a fight. We're going to work it out. That's not the case. We've had businesses sent to the courts to have liquidated that we had to sell before because of that. We've seen partner conflicts all the time. Before you ever get in business with somebody, even if you are now, you need to have an operating agreement about how to split the company if that were to arise. Things happen. Some owners fade out, others get stuck doing all the work, people move, fights, whatever, right? Maybe it's an economic hardship. Maybe the company's struggling and one partner wants out. Having defined exit triggers and how to go about facilitating them is so important. When we get deals where that's already a problem, it's so hard to sell because everybody's fighting for their scraps. They're angry. It becomes more of a personal grudge than what's best for the company, right, Chris? I mean, how often do we see that? One in maybe every 25 transactions?
Yeah, yeah. It happens more often than it should. But the fastest way to drain a business's value is through unresolved ownership disputes. I
Yes.
had a freight brokerage company where one of the partners died and
Ugh.
nothing had been established. Nothing had been established. It was just like they
Mm-hmm.
were in their mid to late 40s. So right, they're not thinking that that's going to happen. But without a buy-sell agreement, what happened? It went into a legal nightmare for both families, because now the partner that his family, the partner that had died, his family obviously wanted to take over. They wanted full value, and they had this
Oh yeah.
unreasonable expectation of what the value of the company should be. Without that buy-sell agreement, a single disagreement can escalate into very expensive litigation. You got to bring in lawyers now, and it's going to disrupt operations. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're in the middle of a deal like we had so much interest in that business at that time. But I've got to
Mm-hmm.
tell these buyers that. So do you think any of those buyers stuck around to see the dust settle? Not at
No.
that time. Maybe they'll come
No.
back around a year or 2 years. Hey, check back in. But that value that we were trying to capture at that time, that's
It's
long
gone.
gone. Yep, that's gone.
No, and it's unfortunate. And nothing's worse. Nothing makes a broker more frustrated when you call saying you're ready to sell, but we've got a family dispute and we can't all agree what it's worth. And we have our attorneys fighting with each other. So now I know not only do I have two feuding parties with attorneys involved, y'all want me to be the mediator. I'm not here to be the mediator. We're happy to help, but if both sides are willing to be pragmatic, right, Chris? When I see two parties that can't even get along in the same room, that's extremely hard to sell a company because you're going to need information from both parties and they have to agree on value. And if both sides aren't willing to put their own personal grudges aside, that's an issue. But you brought up a point about, a partner dying. I hope they have partners insurance. That's
Yeah,
something that you need to have.
yeah.
If you've got a
They did not. So that was
oof.
a big. There's nothing to buy out. Then you're asking the family's
Now
coming
you
in
got to
after.
go value the company, go get a loan, right, to buy them
Yeah,
out, which is
yeah,
even harder
exactly.
because now the key man's gone.
That's right.
And that's what
Yeah,
people don't realize. It's values there, but when that person's gone and that person had a key role, that's very hard for a lender to say, yeah, I'm just going to give so and so the money just because. The SBA and bankers love in-house transactions, partner to partner. But if one partner dies and then you got estate issues, banks go, oh man, I don't know. This is just too much going on. It makes it hard. Besides partner splits, legal and financial crises, industries can get disrupted. you know, Insurance issues. Do you have insurance policies in place where if your company gets sued, you'll survive, or it's not going to drain all your working capital, drain all your funds? Do you have those necessary protections in place? I see so many owners just carry nothing. And it's a little scary to say, man, like what if your driver or let's say you can relate to this, Chris. Let's use you for an example. Sorry to be the guinea pig. You got an event rental company. Your driver goes out there and kills a mom and three kids in a car accident. God help you have insurance, right? I mean, or
right.
at least max coverage, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We see that all the time. People go to sell. Well, yeah, but we got a lien on the company. Well, how bad? This, have insurance? No, well, we can't even sell you to cover the difference. Or worse, we can sell it, but you're not going to walk away with anything. That's brutal. That's unnecessary risk. That happens a lot, but it does happen. The other issues to think about, people don't realize cyber issues. Please have your data secure. Please have backup files. Please, for the love of God, do not allow one computer to house your entire organization's history on it. Have a backup. Nothing is worse than hearing, well, my my desktop, I was 10 years old, had the files on it, and then it crashed. So we can't give you financials.
Yeah.
Well, there went your value.
Yeah.
We see it. It's silly. And then lastly, because that's a simple topic. If you don't have it, just a bunch of programs like iDrive, Google Drive, back stuff up. Have backup copies. But the biggest one we see that people don't plan for, I think, is the market change and instability. We've seen it this year with things up and down, with tariffs, new administrations, inflation, COVID recently. Too many owners wait till that drop happens and they're not collateralized. They're not prepared for it. Assume that one day you've got to have a reserve fund. I know everybody wants to distribute funds at the end of the year as profits. I get it. You want to make some money. Have that nest egg. Have a plan if your key worker were to leave or there were to be a downturn in your industry, what you're going to do. Always be thinking about a backup plan. It doesn't have to be perfect because you're not going to know the exact scenario. But we talk about in this business, Chris, like what happens if XYZ were to happen? We always have a backup plan about how we're going to function and continue to generate revenue. And I think too many owners get so blindsided doing the 9 to 5 every day that they don't prepare for that game-changing moment. Look at AI. We talked about AI a couple of podcast episodes back. If you're not using it, you need to understand it immediately. Like, go get help today because it's going to change your industry. It may not be changing it fundamentally in every aspect, but that's coming. There are market changes coming to every industry of AI. You need to be prepared. And if you're not, put your head in the sand, you're going to watch value drop dramatically, right? You're going to see it walk away out the door.
Yeah, you need to be ready to instill AI in whatever aspect of your business that you possibly can. Because
Hmm.
if you're not doing it, your competitor or even new people that haven't entered the market yet, that they're going to be entering with those tools and those resources, that's really going to catapult their trajectory of revenue and profitability because they're being more efficient with their time, right?
Yes.
I use AI all the time. It has made me so much more efficient. You got to double check it and make sure it's giving you accurate
Hmm.
information. You got to watch the numbers because it'll throw out some bullshit that
It can get a little squirrely
yeah,
sometimes. Let's be honest.
it's not perfect math. Trust me. I've seen where I've been calculating something. I'm like, where the hell did you come up with that? So don't.
Hmm.
You've got to check it. You can't trust it just to do it on its own. But yeah, you've got to start working with those tools. That's part of disaster proofing is being prepared for
Yes,
those things that's coming down the pipeline, whether you want it to or not in your industry, no matter what industry you're in.
you're right. And that, that's something we stress. You have to be adaptable in business, but sometimes we don't think about the worst case scenario. And we don't want to. I don't want to think another Hurricane Katrina is going to hit Louisiana and wipe out New Orleans, but you have to prepare as if it can happen. And if you live in New Orleans and your business gets hit, how will you survive, right? Do you have things in place to rebound quickly, faster than your competitors, or are you just going to say it's a total loss and not to give up all that value I built up in equity all these years? So, what every business should have in place, we kind of hit the nail on the head earlier, but succession plan, temporary versus permanent roles, and I want to add this too. Go back annually, every 2 or 3 years, and double check it. Make sure it makes sense. We just talked about AI and evolving roles. Make sure new fundamental parts of your business are covered, that you have a current asset list or at least one reasonably close in the document. If you don't have a successor or don't think you have one, start. We've talked about key employees. Start training somebody to take on some of those roles. Or if something were to happen to you, you can delegate payroll and maybe some marketing roles to player A and the others to player B. Doesn't mean one person takes on every bit of the load, but you need to have that. Next is kind of an odd one, but a buy-sell agreement. People think, well, I'm not selling the company today. No, you're not. But you need some kind of agreement, like we talked about earlier, drafted, how you're going to outline if you die, the company needs to be broken up. Say you have multiple kids, say you have multiple marriages. We had that exact example recently. A lady and a man got married. They had separate families before with kids. They owned several coin operated laundromats. But when they died, it went to estate. There wasn't a plan how to run it. The dad did all the work. The wife doesn't know what to do. But guess whose kids want their share right now? Right, Chris? They want their share of the business value. The problem is no one's taking care of it properly. We've sold two of the three, got the third one under contract. But she came to us going, we had no plan in place. I don't know what to do. The family lawyer's trying to help, but she doesn't know business that well. And there's no disrespect to her, but this isn't what she does. And it's hurt the value of the last location. It's hurt them because there wasn't a plan in place. How to count the money, how to account for the money, where to deposit it, what to do with it properly, how to record the notes properly. And it sucked. And if you've got a business, you need a way to value the business. And we can help with that. Say you're a business owner, like, what do I do my die? How to value my business? We can help build in and peg, define what cash flow is and how we came to it and help you find a peg. So when the day comes, if you do need to sell it, you say, hey, look, I've talked to Sunbelt, talked to Chris or Brandon in the writing, in the will writing or whatever document. Hey, look, so-and-so passed away. Go see these guys. They're going to help you value it. Here's the past valuation, how they did it. They're going to show you how to get to the new valuation and they can either take it to market or we can sell it to a partner. They can get SBA funding for that. Have that in place. Don't come to us saying, I don't know what it's worth. I've never thought about this. I don't know what to do. And then we have to give you the reality of what the situation is. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's really, really bad. I mean, have you ever had someone call you, Chris, where, hey, my partner died and now I want to sell, and you have to tell them what was worth $1 million is worth what? 100, 200 grand? I hate those
Yeah.
conversations.
No, absolutely. And I think the worst part is, like you talked about, with the kids wanting their share of the value of the company,
Right
and
away.
we don't even have it pegged. The owner doesn't have it pegged what that value is going to be. So
Mm-hmm.
they take it to some person who does valuations,
Grossly inflates it often.
yeah. Let's they throw a 6 or 7x on it because they found one company that values. Now you've got to come up with that value or fight it. So you're going to be tied up
Mm-hmm.
with either lawyers or you're going to be trying to pay off a valuation that's overinflated. It's going to drain the company of its resources. You're not going to have money to grow the company. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you've got to have all these documents and plans in place, ready to go, ready for the unexpected.
That's right. We talk about that emergency standard operating procedures, something were to happen, you don't have to have a lot of them, but just have those few step-by-step guidelines. If there's key roles that you do every day as owner, say you check the leads. say you double check this part of your business every day. Make sure someone has at least looked at it once or twice before you and knows where to go and where to find it. Like my dad said, something happens to me, there's a filing cabinet right over there, top drawer, back end. Go find it, right? Like we had those discussions, and I laughed it off in my head. The day happened, I came in the office and it was pull that drawer out. Here's the documentation we had signed. Here's the stuff I need, and is able to execute daily. You saw it happen with your own two eyes. I'm glad we did that. I'm fortunate that we did that.
Yeah,
A lot of
a
people
good way.
don't do it.
Yeah, a good way to think about it is that imagine somebody with some intelligence off the street walks into your office. They have no idea how to run your business or
Mm-hmm.
anything about your business. You should have a manual and policies and procedures in place so that they could start reading, and
Mm-hmm.
within a certain amount of time they could knew how to do everything in your business. At least it's been documented. It's going to take them time to learn it, but it needs to cover everything from payroll processing to client communication, inventory, how to do every single granular thing about your business needs to be in that binder.
That's right. And I would add to that a list of key expenditures that come up. If you're a business that has a lot of yearly or semi-annual payments that come up, make note of that when they typically come in, so someone knows, hey, cash flow wise, I'm going to get hit with a big bill in June and a big one in September. Because a lot of people don't realize the day-to-day bills you pay, you forget about. But those bills come in. And if you're not prepared for it in cash flow, you could spend the money you think on other projects needed, then realize, oh my God, I didn't realize I have a $10,000 insurance bill coming in August. What do I do? Right? That happens far too much. And I would also, too, one topic we kind of have to discuss is updated wills and trust. But I would tell people, if you don't have a corporation set up, get your business in a corporation. But even if you do, have the lawyer, whoever set it up, or if you say you did it yourself online, which is fine, have a lawyer go and draft some kind of operating agreement, or even if you've thought about it in your upper age, put it into a trust or into a specific holding company to have that designation set up for maybe if you don't have a partner, but where how the family members can obtain access to it and control and have deciding fate. Or if not, what is the plan? Because too often we see people, well, I know the truck was in his personal name, but that vehicle he used for the company, but it was in someone else's name, or it's my mom's car. And then I've got this piece of equipment over here. When it goes to a state, that's all going to get cut up and untouchable it's going to be subdivided. It's such a mess. And having gone through it, luckily we didn't have those issues, but just the small ones that I had to go through, with as much as we had prepared, have a will. Have something guideline. I mean, have something, not just a plan of action, but a will to dictate what you want done with the company. If you're a single sole owner, don't leave it there for us to fight over, because people do get greedy. People do have different visions of grandeur. Well, Dad made all this money all this year. He must be worth $10 million, right, Chris? And it's worth $1 million. Dad was just frugal and made it work.
Yeah.
We see that, or Dad's a key license number. Who do you call if there's a problem? We talked about disability insurance. We talked about data stores and all that, but let's talk about the advisors a little bit. I think that's an underrated tone and subject we have not discussed. Please, if you don't work in the business, or if you are a seller and your family doesn't know who you may have a personal attorney, you may have a business attorney. Have their contact information and their documentation lined up in your desk drawer, somewhere someone can find it very easily. Because those are the accountant and the CPA are going to be the two most important people you see right away. Because they're going to tell you what's going on, where everything is, and what your options are. And if you don't have their information lined out, have it prepared. Have that documentation ready. And don't make it some random attorney spoke to you one time. Preferably someone you've worked with previously a couple of times. Or if you plan to have one, but you don't have one now, tell them, hey, look, I want to designate you as my such and such attorney. If something were to happen to me, here's my company information here. Here's what I expect. Get something done. Do not wait on that. So let's talk a little bit, kind of change topic a little bit, kind of the steps we need, not to stall here. I'm sorry. I kind of hit a little brain fart. As a host occasionally, I get a pass, right, Chris? I've never stalled before. Do you have a story of a certain business where the owner died and then the family came to you? Because I've got a couple, but I want to see if you've got a good one first.
Yeah, I've got one where I had a lawn care company. This is years back, 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The husband died suddenly. No medical
Mm.
issues. I believe it was a heart attack, something of that nature. Something comes on quickly and no time to plan anything. Wife came to me. She knew I just sold another lawn care company, and we'd known each other through mutual connections as well.
Mm-hmm.
She came to me and just needed me to start from ground zero. Needed the
That's
business
so hard.
valuation. Yeah, it was. There was a great thing is there was a manager in place,
That saved the day.
but
Had to have saved the day.
it helped, but the owner was still doing 90% of the work. So the
Mm,
manager could continue to do the work. That's great. But a lot of things were going to get lapsed. The wife who's grieving, she had to come in and she had to kind of take on that role of got to
hmm
get these things done that he used to do, or at least delegate them to who's going to do them now. But yeah, she had me come in. We did a business valuation. She agreed to it. Started reaching out to various buyers. We had to move quickly. So this was not one where we could
Test
set
the
up
market
the
per se.
yeah, we couldn't get it out there. It was basically me making calls to very close, probably competitors, right?
Yep.
It's other
You have
people in
to.
the
That's your best
industry.
chance.
Yeah. And so that was unfortunate because that there's a lot of lost value in when you're making that desperate phone call of, hey, this guy just passed away suddenly. Can you help the wife out and buy this company? You're not coming from a
Position of
position of power
leverage.
right there. That buyer has all the leverage. They can start
Hmm
dictating terms, what they're going to want to pay because they know wife
You
doesn't
want out.
run. Yeah, she didn't run the business before. She wasn't even involved in the business. So
Hmm
she wants to get back to her life. So yeah, very unfortunate situation there where you've lost a lot of value. Not that you wouldn't have anyway, because you passed away suddenly and you're left there, but if you had things in place where it could continue to run, and that wasn't the case. If standard operating procedures had been there and the manager had more of a role and he knew exactly how to do
Been
payroll
trained a
and all
little
the
more.
things, yeah. But he didn't know those things. So lost value for sure.
You're right, and you made a key point. She was still grieving while trying to figure this out, and that's the hardest part. And I'll be the first to raise my hand here. I was days I cried at my desk, just looking at stuff, trying to find out what to do. I've been here 13 years. I know this business inside and out. There were still things I had to relearn, had to figure, had to put myself in a different mindset to figure out. And that's when you're under stress on top of everything. It is, that is so hard, especially when it's unexpected. It's one thing if you've got a year or two because the owner's got cancer to prepare, but when it rips it from you, you think all the worst thoughts. And to those out there listening, this is not a scare you episode, but what we're telling you is you need to understand how much value is at stake. And you probably know that, but you haven't thought about it in the most worst context of what's going to happen. I would tell everyone too, you're not going to have all the answers written down. Let's start right there. You're not. Now, a good owner with good manuals and training other people to help out will ease the speed bump. But the more you do on the front end to protect the business and the family, the easier it is for them to get the value back out of it. I saw a post from a private wealth company here in town on LinkedIn yesterday talking about don't let your business sale be your only part of succession to fund your retirement. Too many people don't invest and save properly and don't have plans like this for exit strategy. We talked about last week about things you should prepare for your exit strategy and key things you're not valuing properly. This is another key in that cog that gives you the ability to do something. Would you rather see your company sell for 2 million, which it should sell for, or sell for 1 million because it's an emergency sale? You might lose a little bit of value because the owner has died. Yes, that may happen. That will, like you said, leverage. It may weigh you. That may be a special license where someone else has to buy it and step in. But man, it's still tough. It's still not fun. And having been on both sides of that coin, having lived through it this year, I'm making things different for my family and my plans. Something were to happen to me. And I'm 34, going to be 35 in, oh God, a week. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I have to think long term. I have to think about what I'm going to do to protect my wife and my two children. And my people who have been here, some of my dad for 25 years, they deserve it. If nothing else, think about your employees. Let me take a step back. People who have been with you for so long, they deserve to know they're taken care of too. If they're going to put their trust in you and put their careers in your hands, you do it for them and also protect your value for your family and for the company because the company does matter. As far as anecdotal stories on my end, we've seen plumbing companies where the husband was kind of doing a lot of the work, maybe 3 guys in a truck, 2 trucks. He dies, they can't operate, they don't have a license. There are a lot of cases where you have a grace period with the local or the state level authority to get you a temporary license or have coverage, but that should be defined in the contract. Not the contract, excuse me, the documentation you leave behind. Like, hey, if I die, there's 14 days to find a real estate broker in Florida. Go get a temporary broker. Do not let it lapse. Those are things that Maybe only you know because you took the test and you have the certification. Have those things written down. They may seem backhand knowledge to you, but to the average person has no idea. And then they get a notice from the state, hey, you can't operate because you don't have this. Right, Chris?
That's
I
right.
mean, that does happen. And then we as a broker trying to help you sell, we talked about leverage being reduced. You want to talk about gut your ability to sell this company. That's the worst thing that we see because we don't want you to lose value. And that's what we hate. I hate having those conversations, but we have them. I would say too, if you're out there listening and this is a wake up call, we don't draft these documents, but if you want to reach out to one of us, I'm happy to give you a tidbit, just a quick checklist of things that I see that I went through that I'm happy to share with anybody out there to avoid the same problems I went through and prepare your business and be successful and be ready. And when you're ready, you can execute. When you can execute, people have peace of mind. I'm glad I had stuff in the bin. Not everybody does. And luckily, my dad had enough foresight at 81 when I beat him over the head. You're going to die one day. Don't leave me like this. He still did a little bit, but at least we had things prepared. I can't stress that enough. Did we miss anything, Chris? Because I feel like we covered a lot of great stuff with having documentation, partners insurance, preparing for the unexpected. Did we miss anything, or do you think we hit the nail on the head today?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of stuff. A lot of, I will tell you a personal tidbit on mine is that I started. It's taxing, right? You think about putting all this stuff, and you got a business
Yes.
run, you got family, you got all these other things.
It's way down the priority list.
It's way down on the priority list.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how I did mine. About 3 years ago, I just started writing up stuff on a Word document. I saved it on my desktop. I probably spent 30 minutes, an hour on it. I didn't complete it, but I did put on my calendar every month to add a little bit more to it. It's now about 4 or 5
Very smart.
pages long. It's got accounts numbers, it's got insurance numbers, got the accountant's number. So that's where I'd say is don't make this an overwhelming project that's going to take up your entire Saturday. But get started, add to it, whether it's weekly or monthly or quarterly, just add to it and kind of it's good to look at it too. Things change,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Account
what we
numbers
said.
change. Yeah, yeah. So
Don't assume the
what I'd
plan from
say,
5 years ago works. There may have
yeah,
been a dramatic shift in your business. That person may be gone. Like, you have to update it.
yeah. What I'd say is if your business can't survive without you, if you're in that situation, it's not really an asset. It's a liability for you in disguise because people are going to have to they're going to have to come together and figure it out for you when you're no longer able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, disaster proofing, what we're talking about today, is not being pessimistic. It's not looking at all the
Mm-mm.
negative things in life that can happen. It's about leadership.
It
It's
is.
saying I care enough about what you said, my team, my employees, my customers, and I want to protect my investment from the
Mm-hmm.
unexpected. What you have to do now is you have to put these structures and policies, procedures, you have to put them in place now. Now is when you have time and you have the clarity. You won't have
Yes,
that later. So
you
when
don't.
life throws you that curveball, you're not scrambling to do all this. You've already done it. You've got a plan. Like you said, it may not include everything, but somebody can come in and they can cover the bases.
80% gets you a long way for buying time. I would even add to that point, double check with your bank documents and your signature authorities, because even though I was a signature authority on the accounts, because the online banking was open in just my dad's name, we never thought about that. That got taken away from me. I went 4 months without online banking. In this age, that's a bear. Don't ever assume the documentation that someone else put in place prior is going to carry over. Get clarification from where it's located, whether it's the bank, your attorney, your vendors. Make sure those documents have that ability. If not, do you need to modify them now? Because you'll be surprised that these things pop up and someone goes, "Oh, well, are you so and so? No. Are you the present company? Yes. But are you on here? No. We have to verify. Nope. You got to wait. Need a death certificate, judgment of possession. That can be 2, 3, 4, 5 months away. That's you don't have 5 months to wait. Take it from me. Luckily I was prepared. The average person, my mother would have no idea what to do. It happened. It fell in her lap. She would have had no idea. She'd have been calling me. I've been quitting my job to come here to help. That's how bad it would have been. I mean, but that's scary to think about. But the most rewarding thing I ever heard, and I'll end the podcast on this note, was a couple of years ago, my dad was talking to one of the guys in the office, and they told me the story about a month ago. And he says, Mr. Bob, you're getting up there in age. Bob being my father, for those who don't know. What are you going to do? What's your backup plan? Because, I don't want to be here if there's no plan. And he looked around. I don't know if I was there or not. He just kind of went over his back shoulder. He goes, that's my backup plan. He's ready. He's there. I got everything lined up. You'll be good. And that kept my team at peace, because they're my team now, but that time they weren't. And when everything happened, nothing skipped a beat. Yeah, there were some headaches, still are, but he understood that, and he imparted that into the team. So the team knew that there was something there, that they had confidence, and that if they didn't have confidence in it, he was going to know right then and could then make adjustments, because that's something we didn't cover. Your team may not be receptive to the plan, and you may need to think, hey, if they're not going to buy into it, this isn't worth. Is this really what I want to do? Because I don't want to leave somebody with a hot mess that I can't control or can't work through. So for what it's worth, that's my last anecdotal story. I think we covered everything. What do you say,
there's
Chris?
some things we left out, but we want to save.
There always are.
Save something for
but
down the road.
That's right. But at least we gave you, everyone out there listening, a great insight to things to be prepared for and to consider, and to at least, if you haven't started, like Chris said, he said it best. Start 10 minutes every few weeks. Just start getting some stuff down. You'll be surprised when you start the project how much you start coming to you. Like, oh man, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that. That's great. Start the process. Because no matter whether you're selling when you're ready, not really, or unexpectedly, you have to sell. And that's why you listen to the Steps to Soul podcast, so you're ready. And on that note, Chris, I think we have covered every little topic we have today. If not, thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Y'all have a good one.